This media is brought to you by Polyscope.
In the realm of tomorrow, where techniques mind, we ponder, we dream.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you because we meet each other nowadays over Zoom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me, Chris. My name is Peter Swinn. I'm with Toilville. We are a AI first work automation consultancy. We work a lot with chatbots and AI, LLM, and all the acronyms you can think of.
Hmm.
We help small businesses and firms make smart choices as they look to automate these things and have good outcomes for their experimentations with Gen AI.
Well, can you give me some examples of how you operate? Because when it comes to automation in the space, I mean, I played around with a bunch of different tools and I haven't seen anything that really works really well. Maybe you could
Yeah,
explain how you explain to like I'm five,
sure.
right?
Um, well, like I think anyone who's played with these tools, they make a great demo. And I think the devil's in the details of when you actually go to use these things for the work you want them to do. They interview well, they do like a really great pitch. And then when you get into work, you get into problems.
Right.
And so the first thing my firm likes to do is work with the organization to identify how they work and what they're expecting to do. Because I think people are looking at agents and agentic AI as kind of like the hiring process. You hire an agent to do a job and it'll know how to do stuff. And they are still very much beholden to the person who's prompting and the context of the organization, the data you feed it. So people who don't have good internal practices uh, generate at scale employees of their worst habits.
Right.
So there's like a lot of like trust falling and like understanding organization and efficiency because we need to be able to understand if the thing we're building is better or worse than the thing we have.
So it sounds like you're taking existing processes and trying to automate them. Is that the case, or do you also look sort of beyond that and go, okay, there's something wrong here, or is like the
Mhm.
big picture, you step back and go, wait a minute, all of this needs to change first.
So, and I think like both of those things are great outcomes. But first, a lot of my clients have to identify the common language they use to evaluate these things.
Mm,
There's going to be opportunities to do things that you've never done before. You didn't have the right people, or you didn't have the resources, or you couldn't work 24/7 in a data center. And there's also going to be opportunities to take the weight off the shoulders of people who are doing stuff that is just like, frankly, rote activity and boring and stuff like
right,
that. So
right.
you need to have kind of a evaluation metric of all the work that you do and be able to evaluate from the lowest thing to the most complex thing. Is this a suitable task for AI?
Right. And then how do you do that? I mean, can I just say something like, okay, I need to create this, I need to do this set of reporting, right?
Yeah.
As a human being, I do this set of reporting. And then do you just have the AI sort of like watch what happens and try to emulate it, or how do you teach it to do these things?
I think that's a great question. And I think, it's very difficult to like tell people one way is the best way or one way is the worst way, depending on what tools they're using and what expertise they have, right?
Right.
And I think we need to understand one is the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And are you kind of like making a mousetrap out of a molehill, of
Hmm.
like, I've gone to organizations where their entire ERP strategy lives in an Excel spreadsheet. And all the
Right.
work is around copying things from the report into the Excel spreadsheet to present it to the stakeholders to take it out of the report to go to the mail merge. And so these are things like that, these are kind of like, I was a product owner at Microsoft for many years. And the most amazing thing as a product owner is to watch people use your products. And it's almost like, watching children like they put it in their mouth, they turn the knob, and there are all these
Hey,
things that
you want to go, no, not like that, not like that.
right? But you have to learn, right? Because there's like things that are intuitive to you that aren't intuitive to others. And so AI is really a good opportunity to kind of like pick apart the morass of your business process and like find out things that you'll do different now. What do you do now that you have 10 minutes free every day that you spent compiling and updating the Excel? And uh, so there's a process of like little gains and low hanging fruits, and then the moonshots, and what do we get when we do them? and you need to have kind of like a really good sense of how the ROI works for that. So, and it doesn't help that the AI providers are coming out with new models every 6 minutes that posit to be, oh, this is very good for this scenario and this limited thing, and this is very good for this scenario and this limited thing. And you don't want, as an organization, you don't want to become like the product testers for their API,
Right.
the free product testers when you are just looking to get the business outcome. So I think having kind of like your own sense of metrics and self-worth and status of like how you do products is very important because, if you want to invest 40 hours a week in like trying out the new and latest model that says it does a thing on the tin to find out doesn't do the thing on the tin, it doesn't help your organization launch the thing that you wanted to do, right?
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of like a don't, you could dip your toe in, don't dive into you're ready. And I talk a lot of people out of using AI tools and going back to traditional automation tools more
Mm.
often than not because they decide that the risk is such that I will build my system to be ready for this eventuality. But until it's like something that is as reliable as what we've got, we can't switch over.
Right. Because you're probably coming across a lot of processes that could be automated with regular tools. They do not need AI, right?
Yeah,
And people are
yeah,
coming to you with these kind of problems, and you're like, wait a minute, you don't need AI for this. You just need regular, RPA or something, right?
right. And it's people who run technology and company. They know how much it costs a person to reboot the server, right? And they know to go out to the knock and redo things and all that. And so if I'm in a position of selling access to AI versus solving problems, that kind of puts me at a bias to finding out ways to fit AI to do the thing. And while it may be capable for AI to do a great many things, does it do it better or more affordably than existing things is a really important question people should ask before they get swept up in the momentum of things.
Right, right, exactly right. So, are you one of the founders? Are you the founder or one of the founders of
I'm
the
I'm
company?
I, I'm the founder. I've worked in product and conversational AI for 10 years and tech for 25 years.
Wait a
And
minute. AI's only been around for 3. What are you talking about? You can't you can't
um,
possibly be an I for 10 years. What are you talking about?
I so so like so way back in the Stone Ages, we would use a thing called regex, and regex would pattern
Oh my
match and
God, I
things like
remember
that.
that.
It started out 20 years ago with press one for banking and press two for credit, and it slowly evolved into like being able to capture words, then phrases, and we've been using machine language learning to understand people's speech for over a decade now, and it's actually kind of good almost, like
It's way
provided
better than
you
it
are,
was. I tell you. I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
Dragon Dictate days, and I'm like, oh my God, that was awful.
Well, I was with the team that bought the Dragon teams into Microsoft, and it was
Really?
a very interesting world because, they kind of like they discovered America or whatever it was, 10 or 15 years ago. And like their solution and the way we used to build these things was everyone got their own model, right?
Mm,
And everyone, so like as a company kind of onboarded onto it, they would have to build up a corpus with all their shop talk and all the things that is peculiar to their company. Uh, and this is really hard for like, working for companies with like the Seattle Coffee Company and all that make up words for large and small.
oh yeah, yeah.
um, you would have to do things by default. And so the large language models has kind of sidestepped this whole problem. So inference, the understanding of people's intents and language in all different languages is almost like a solved problem, but
Mm,
it's very expensive. It's like an LM, not putting aside the environmental impact, but like the economic cost of to run a model and build this model is crazy expensive if all you're doing is understanding humans. And
right.
that's why they're so gung ho, I think, on pushing the reasoning and like decision making and stuff like that, because only then does the cost of them start to rival a person picking up a phone and answering questions. Yeah.
Right. Right. So so how long have your company been around?
Your young company started November of last year.
Oh, so you're really, 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 really fresh.
Yeah, really fresh. And I think what kind of drove me to start my company was um, one of the things that wasn't part of my main duties when I was at companies like Microsoft and Walmart was I would go and host these office hours. And because as a product owner, I wanted to hear all the use cases so I could understand what people are building with my tools.
Right.
And I always encounter people. It's like, man, I wish we had someone like you to just like be our horse whisperer in this project and define things. And it came on a realization, hey, I'm a person like me, and
Hmm.
so that's what kind of set me out to stuff these things because I think having a person who understands the tooling, but is not like at the end of the day trying to sell credits to Azure or Google Cloud and all that is like really helpful in this process. And I
Right.
think my clients find that expertise helpful too.
So that was that the impetus for you to start the company?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you,
yeah. I think the one thread of all my tech AI, like my first job in high school, I worked for the library teaching senior citizens how to use the internet in 1995.
oh,
So
nice.
like, I've
The good
always
old
been,
days.
yeah, days. And but like,
Wait, is
you
that a
know,
modem or a fax machine?
I, we actually had we used uh it was at Chicago Public Libraries, and their internet connection was one big network going downtown. So
Nice.
everything was the internet, and then you would have to go out to the internet, and you know. So it was much like today, where people like thought, oh yeah, this is it, this is the thing to do. Well, what can we do? It's like I don't know, what do you want to do? And so so I would talk to seniors like, can I look up baseball scores? Like, here you are, like,
Yeah.
and then there was like more interesting questions to me, like, I want to find out, my old town from in Europe that my grandfather immigrated from. Like, I want to see, where my family is. And then people started inventing all these scenarios that are like way outside either like one business interest wants to monetize and people want to connect to.
Mm,
It's also really, people who hang out in the library are people who love information
yes.
and technology and stuff. So it wasn't like I was like, trying to convert people who were against this idea. But it was really interesting to me as a kid who kind of grew up with stuff. And even though I'm probably the last analog generation, right? Like I remember before cell phones and having a bike and not knowing your parents don't know where you are at 8 o'clock and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, um, and I think like that puts me in a really unique perspective. If I may toot my own horn of like understanding like what is good about analog and what is good about digital and how do we like negotiate the two and not lose the things that make us interesting human beings.
That's
And
right.
I think like I find it really rewarding in my consultancy to kind of like amplify, because every organization has like you have a lifer who has been in the company for 35 years, who knows where all the
Hmm.
bodies are buried
They
and
know
knows how
everything.
they know how to do things. How do you make them more available without making them just like on the phone all the time answering questions? And
Right.
I think to me, that is like the ultimate scenario that I want to enable. It is kind of like this amplification of human excellence and also like uh, getting them off the hook from all the blase questions of like, when's the office open and what's the
Right.
phone number and all
Right.
that stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, are you able to do that? Are you able to say, sit Dave down in the corner and go, "Hey, Dave, we're going to pick your brains and we're going to create a almost like a digital avatar of you and let the avatar answer questions on your behalf." Is that sort of like the end game for you, or is that where you are today?
I think today we're at a place where it's entirely possible, and I don't see a lot of people doing this, but like what I call like that R2D2 in the Red 5 scenario, where Luke is all he's thinks he's piloting, but the droid is piloting,
Right.
and Luke takes over when he needs to target the Death Star, and that kind of like helper bot, and it may be a helper bot that's kind of like searching the FAQ for you and like pulling up a customer's record. Like my dentist has a really great system where every time someone calls, the phone recognizes the phone number of patients and pulls up their chart. And I
Nice.
think those are like the scenarios that are
That
super
seems so
interesting.
simple, but it's almost it's like nobody does it. It's just these little
Yeah,
tiny quick hits, quick wins.
yeah, and I think these are really great examples of ROI that like. So now the dentist picks up and you're like, "Oh, Chris, how you doing? I see it's been 3 months since your visit." And wow, I feel like I am the mayor of this dentist office. They treat me so well, And I think those are really incredible scenarios that they aren't expensive. They're not necessarily AI, but they're powered in the systems that we all are connected to and stuff like that. And so that's the most exciting thing to me is like we're kind of renegotiating what an API is now, and we're renegotiating how data is shared between systems um, and how that context changes the operations you have in. And I'm really hopeful that as things go right, you will have, we saw Apple announce personal models, and
Hmm.
I think that's really interesting to me of like model that I own, that's my digital identity, that's not like a corporate product or a corporate entity, and isn't data that is handed out with my consent.
Well,
Like,
that's exactly where we should go. I think that's the biggest problem that we have now is that we're feeding our data into these models and they're owning the data, right? And we need
mm,
to have our own personal models that sort of go to bat on our behalf. It's kind of like I'm thinking about all this big iron out there that's owned and operated by these big organizations to run for their ends, not for our ends. I
mm,
mean, they're not trying to
exactly.
help us. They're trying to do their thing. It's like I need my own
Yeah,
AI
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
can help me.
I would love an agent that lives on my phone that calls the 37 plumbers in my area and finds the 20 that have good reputations and are in my price range and a history of fixing houses like mine. And then I will look at the list of the remaining five and pick one, right? Or, negotiation. Like I built a project for a client a couple of years ago that was so the email is a series of negotiations, and then it results in an artifact, which is the contract. And it would compare the entire email chain to the contract and say, "Oh, you forgot this clause, or you forgot this thing," or
Oh, that sounds
you-
super useful. Super,
like.
super useful.
And it wasn't power. It was powered by a machine learning, but it wasn't expensive machine learning. It was just something like, okay, I'm going to go. My work is done for the day. I'm going to have it run the numbers overnight. In the morning, I'll have a report that lets me know if the artifact equals the discussion.
Right.
And like, and I think these things are huge. Like we're as humans, we're drowning in digital minutia, right?
Tell me about it.
And and the fact that like Apple seems to be the only company out there that is like looking, okay, we'll own your digital life, but we'll keep you safe and private. And you'll have like a little, status board every morning you can look at to see how things are going. And,
Yeah.
I think that's what people really want. They don't want to like have AI make stuff for them. They want
Mm.
AI to like present stuff to them in the way that they're used to presenting it. Like
Yeah.
I wake
And
up
of
every
course,
morning, have my coffee, and read the news. I'm going to read
yeah.
my AI report of like, oh, my stock is down, or I need to talk to my financial planner, or whatever, yada yada. So,
Yeah, because if you think about it, like you were saying, I mean, there's such a torrent of information coming in, and we're out there trying to navigate this torrent. And if the
mm,
AI could just go, okay, this is exactly what he is interested in, because we have so little time, and there's just so much information, and there's no way to do that in an easy way ourselves. It's
right.
impossible.
Yeah, and I think the human brain is very good at calling split second decisions if they're properly hydrated, right? And if
Right.
you're properly motivated and you can understand things. And there's a lot of things that are just like, yeah, you know, like I subscribe to the newspaper because I like to read all my information in one place, you know. And so like there could be services like that everywhere, like I have meals delivered to my house because I can't cook, and I have,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
think like,
I'm a big fan of proactive AI because this is the thing where we're at right now is that we have to instantiate all this stuff. It's like I have to go, Alexa, do this, Siri, do
mm,
that. It's like I don't want to have to ask them to do that. They know that I'm doing this and this at this point in time. They know where I am. They know what I'm doing. They should be
mm,
able to pitch in and help me, right? As opposed
yeah.
to me having to call on them all the time, right? I mean, how far away are we from that?
Um, I feel like for motivated individuals, we're there. Like, I think I'm really hopeful, and there's technologies like model context protocol and being able to run a model on your own device. So even outside of the Apple ecosystem and getting into Hugging Face, and if you're super smart and savvy, you can make a local model that controls all your digital life and information. If you're, with the same expertise as like a ham radio operator,
Right.
or like a stamp collector, someone who's like a really like a dilettante. And I think you're really super far away from the consumer way of doing it.
Mm.
And you see, to me, my barometer of whether we're close was how bold companies like Apple are proclaiming that future is here, and they
Yeah.
keep hedging the bet. You know,
Yeah.
so the people who are like saying we're there are the ones whose future depends on it being real, and the people who have access to our consumers' pocketbooks are kind of being cagey about it. And I
Yeah.
think so. And I think it boils down to the fact that uh, LLM technologies are inherently probabilistic and they're not repeatable, and so they're not reliable. So, imagine if you hired, I'll date myself, Eddie Haskell, kind of kid, you know, what I
I
mean, like
wouldn't
some
hire
kind of,
that guy.
yeah, he talks one way to everyone he talks to, he's on your side,
Yeah,
and he doesn't really seem to have any agenda other than himself,
yeah,
and he's not like, like when you have people that are your people, your circle, like you said, they proactively reach out to you, say, hey, I know in the past that you've bought this stock, and the stock is down right now, but they're about to announce earnings and they have good feedback, and I think I'm going to go up, things like that expertise or advice. And
yeah,
maybe AI is never going to be that sophisticated to be that level, but I could be a financial planner and have AI that reminds me that I need to talk to you, Chris,
right,
because a stock that I'm tracking is of interest to you. And so I think like it doesn't have to be unattended successful. It has to be that human in a loop successful to be really impactful, I think.
right. Exactly right. So it's time to think like a futurist. See your 35, 10 years from now. Where do you see all of this technology going? Where do you see what you guys are doing? Where do you see humanity in 10 years?
Um, I really hope to see, and this is like, I'm probably like 50-50 whether this is how it's going to work out, because I'm really in favor of my model is my model, my digital
Mm,
identity, and I pick and choose the data it consumes and who it shares it with, and I have ultimate authority of the other models that I reference and engage through my life, right?
right,
And I can pull and audit those models at will. So, say for example, my bank has a model, and my work has a model, and uh, my house has its own model, and all throughout the day, we're all just constantly like emitting data and making points that need to be decision making,
right.
and we make intelligent decisions based on trends and things that before really become a greater problem, right? I mean, imagine if your roof can tell you that it's developing a leak before you know it's started,
Oh,
you
I would
know,
love that. Make
like,
everything intelligent.
yeah. And I think that's kind of like what they want to do, but also like, we said before, it's kind of in a self-serving way to corporations and not tailored to the individual, right?
Yeah,
Like I don't want my fridge uh recommending food because someone paid the fridge company extra money to promote their food over
yeah,
things I like, you
yeah,
know. And I don't want to watch TV and then I talk to my wife about a product I see on TV, and all of a sudden there's ads everywhere across all my devices for the next 2 weeks,
yeah.
I
Which
I
is where
want to
we
be
are today.
we are today, and so I think this is kind of a moment that we really need to redefine that privacy contract and all that. I hope that happens in the next like 15, 20 years, because I think consumer protections should be improved. Uh, this technology can be very democratic. It can really uplift people into noticing patterns. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day. Is like, tech CEOs think agents is like when you work for a major tech company, you talk to 25 of the smartest guys on the planet at whim. You can like call people up on the smartphone, and they think agents are like that. And really, it's like the other end of the scale where anytime you've had to like wait on hold for Medicare for 2 hours or whatever, how do you skip past that to at least get the basic medium level of care? And I think
Right.
that is what I'm looking to democratize. And that's what I'm really hopeful to up level is like the people who don't have top 25 experts on speed dial, they get access to information and services they need.
So are you saying that there'd be sort of like avatars of those individuals or just sort of agglomerations? Like the information will be put together?
I think like I feel like the avatar thing is kind of overstated. Like
Mm.
it's like I think like my avatar would be like Lassie. It'd be like some sort of like it doesn't need to have a
No, but
persona. It doesn't.
would it be you or would it be sort of like aspects of you that are pulled together to answer that particular question? Right.
I feel like it'd be like a smart version of my credit score, you know, or and where I have control over it, where it's just like I don't want it to act like me or pretend to be me or make decisions on behalf of me. I just want it to like uh, use minimum information that's required in order to solve a task that is a problem that I present.
Right.
And
And it
I
wouldn't
think the
ask you
hard,
for every individual thing. See, I think this is when personal data stores and things have failed in the past. Because I almost did a project with the World Economic Forum way back when Facebook had remember when they had a huge data breach?
Mhm. Yes,
Right? And they were all about personal data, personal data. Everyone gets their personal data. And it's like, 5 minutes later, blew over. And then you think about the responsibility of owning and managing your personal data. It's like nobody wants that. They just want they just want the services. So do you think
yeah.
there'll be like too much overhead on having to manage your own personal data, or can AI help with that as well?
Um, I do think there probably has to be some sort of renegotiation of social contract. Like there's laws to protect my privacy as an individual that can be circumvented by going through buying data from tech companies, right?
Right.
So like the police can't wiretap my phone, but they can get all my data from the pizza app that I've used for the last 6 months and understand
Right.
that I ate, So like, like there's definitely like a discrepancy in like privacy where the law hasn't caught up and
Mm.
technology is kind of running amok. Um, and so I think like as we get into these tools and we talk a lot about agents, defining agency and autonomy. I think we have a lot of problems to solve even below that layer of data privacy and access that is going to make these things incredibly like worrisome. Like I've been playing with this open source tool that basically interrogates MCP agents and lets you know all the privacy rules. And I am 0 to 40 so far on privacy hole free bots because
Wow.
they need data. They need data to be real. Like
Yeah.
they're a BS machine until they have real data. And I think a lot of people are so used to like clicking through EULAs and stuff, they don't understand the implications of clicking yes on a lot of these things and giving access to them. And that was my years in corp life really turned around to like that whole zero trust model.
Mm.
Enterprise data is sacrosanct, and there's industries that have regulated like banking and health that are just like they couldn't use the tool that I built for many many years because we didn't even have the structure of privacy tools, and now
Right.
we do for corporate data, but not for
Mm.
personal data. And so how do we get that? How do we get that? Zero trust to go both ways through consumer data and stuff like that is like the open question a lot of tech companies are kind of skirting by right now, I think.
So are you one of those people who prefers to know everything, or you're okay with your bots doing stuff on your behalf?
Um, I prefer bots able to do things on my behalf, but I want to be able to pull the audit logs. And so,
So go in afterwards what did you do? What did
yeah,
you do? Yeah.
I think also it's an enable rate of users to be able to request to opt out of such systems and to escalate and to be able to request a review.
Mm.
Being able to so like uh, I I worked a lot. I built a chatbot many years ago for a fast food company, and they were one of the first people to allow you their chatbot to order food,
Mm.
and it had very poor uh, metrics around the word refund. And
Mm.
so we interrogated and they're like, why is our score so low on this bot? I'm like, well, your bot lets you order food. Yes. Does it allow you to fix bad orders? Or if the order gets lost? Or what do you do? Like, well, you got to call the 800 number. Yeah. It's
That is
like
like the
something.
worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
It'll take your money, but it won't give it back. It won't fix your order and it won't send you new nachos and all
No,
that
we never
stuff.
thought about that part. We don't really want to give back any money, so we want to make it hard, really, really hard.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, but it's so hard to build these things. It's easy to get tunnel vision from the development side of it.
Yeah.
I get it, and like, oh, you're using it wrong. Like, I'm sorry, I used the order bot wrong in a way that nothing to do with me that caused them to send me the wrong food. Well, what was wrong that I used the bot? That
Yeah.
was the wrong way to use it.
Yeah. That's the wrong way to go about it, right? I mean, you can't use a
Yeah,
bot wrong. There's something wrong with the bot.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, and I think like I started out in tech in customer service, and I used to do phone orders in the 2000s, and like probably a dying art. And yeah, the customer is always right is like a curse and a mantra
Yeah.
that there's no wrong way to use a chatbot because, it's not like a peer program. It's not like a terminal app, and so it's unacceptable to have any kind of error states that are unresolvable without intervention or
Right.
some sort of escalation. It's just, it's like giving a baby a gun, like it's
Yeah.
just irresponsible. It's irresponsible to like give people a tool that isn't at least like thoroughly able to like satisfy 99% of all objectives. And so it cracks me up when I see like people talk about LMs like, well, this LM is 96% human or 90% as good as 90% of all doctors is diagnosing things. It's like
Yeah.
if 10% of doctors were wrong in their diagnosis, there'd be massive lawsuits.
Exactly.
Like doctor expertise is in the 5 nines of quality. To protect people to decide what's good enough humanity is really laughable, is what I've done in the last 10 years
Yeah.
too. I'm just like, that's why it's really important to have your own metrics of lowest quality. And like I think at the end of the day, people start out like building these things like they do a kit from a Knight Rider car or Iron Man spot. And at the end of the day, they're just like an SAQ bot, or they're like something that can make appointments or send an email to it, like because those are 100% solved problems now. Like the
Yep.
SAT, office hours, all those things are like, I worked with another client and they had a contact center and 120 people answered questions for an insurance company that was the size of 13 states Medicare rolls. Very
Whoa.
big company.
Huge.
And the average call time was 2 minutes and a minute 10 of it was identification. Like,
Mm.
I'm Chris. I live here. Here's my address. I am who I am. And
Yeah.
so that is a completely non-AI problem. Like you can if you can find a way to solve that problem, you double the output of your existing contact center in one stroke. And they did that. They were like, they were able to use voice ID and all that stuff. Like, okay, he's calling from a number we know, and it's safe enough that we can identify who he is and
Yeah.
just verify that. And I think like there's so many like scenarios like that just need a little AI or
Yeah.
just like are out there to like, and you can improve productivity while increasing workloads, not making people work 3 times harder, just 2 times smarter,
Yeah. Exactly. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Best place is through our website. It's toilville.com. We also host a weekly office hour. So if you have a question for your business or product or client, or just want to say hi, stop in. We stream from our website and on LinkedIn and Twitch and YouTube.
Very cool. Well, I'll check it out next time. Thank you so much. I'll put all the links in the show notes as well so people can go direct. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.